The room was alive with tension, every seat filled, every eye fixed on the stage. Flashing lights flickered over the polished podiums, catching the beads of sweat on the politicians' foreheads. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, a nervous energy that seemed to vibrate in the air. Cameras rolled, capturing every glance, every twitch, every subtle movement. Tonight was not just another debate, it was a collision course destined to leave a mark. Kamala Harris stepped forward, her heels clicking sharply against the stage floor. She radiated authority, her voice smooth, calculated. Yet beneath that polished exterior, a storm was brewing. Jasmine Crockett, standing calmly across from her, radiated quiet strength. Her posture was straight, her gaze steady. The contrast could not have been starker, aggression versus composure, arrogance versus dignity. Then it happened. A sudden, piercing scream from Kamala cut through the air like a lightning strike. The microphone trembled. The room fell silent. Faces froze mid-expression, jaws dropped. Whispers turned into audible gasps. People instinctively leaned forward, drawn by the raw shock of the moment. Jasmine Crockett's calm response, a slight raise of the brow, seemed almost surreal in its contrast. The crowd held its collective breath, sensing the gravity of what had just unfolded. The scream was more than anger, it was a challenge, a test of control, a moment that would define perceptions. Social media cameras caught every millisecond, poised to immortalize the confrontation. For the audience, it wasn't just a debate anymore. It was a battlefield of personalities, of ideologies, of character itself. The hero and the villain were now visible in stark relief. And then came the pause. Jasmine Crockett did not flinch. She did not respond immediately. The silence stretched, suffocating, charged with anticipation. It was a calm that demanded attention, a quiet defiance that made every viewer lean closer. In that moment, the entire stage seemed suspended in time. Everyone knew the next words, the next move, would ripple far beyond the room. What happens next would not just shock the crowd, it would redefine the narrative, challenge expectations, and set the stage for a confrontation that would be remembered long after the microphones were turned off. The world waited. And in that pause, history hung in balance. The debate was more than a contest of ideas, it was a reflection of a nation at a crossroads. Millions were watching, not just for policies or promises, but for character, for leadership under pressure. This stage was a microcosm of America itself, where voices of dignity and aggression clashed, and where the choices of the powerful could ripple through communities, streets, and living rooms across the country. Kamala Harris's scream had set the tone, but it was only the surface. Her aggression was familiar to many, a polished, practiced display of dominance, a way to intimidate opponents into submission. But tonight, the audience, diverse, attentive, and vigilant, would not be easily swayed. They were citizens who demanded respect for principle, who valued courage and clarity over theatrics. They represented a spectrum of voices, immigrants, activists, young professionals, parents, each waiting to see who would rise to embody the leadership they craved. Across from her, Jasmine Crockett stood unwavering. Every inch of her posture communicated confidence without arrogance. She did not shout, she did not flinch. Her calmness was magnetic, commanding attention not through volume, but through presence. It was the kind of composure that reminded people why courage was often silent, and why integrity was more powerful than bluster. For those watching, she became a mirror of their own hopes, a symbol that dignity could prevail in the face of brazen aggression. The stakes were monumental. On the surface, the debate centered on policies, economic reform, social justice, public safety. But beneath that, every word, every gesture, carried symbolic weight. Kamala's aggression represented the old guard of politics, performative dominance, power wielded with intimidation, a willingness to overshadow truth with spectacle. Crockett, by contrast, embodied a new vision, thoughtful, grounded, and principled leadership, rooted in the lived experiences of ordinary people. Tension simmered like a coiled spring. Each glance, each subtle movement, spoke volumes. The crowd felt it in their chests, a mixture of fear and exhilaration. Fear that arrogance might win, exhilaration at the possibility that integrity could triumph. Social media chatter had already begun to frame the moment as a defining encounter. Clips would circulate, hashtags would trend, and pundits would dissect the contrast between Kamala's fiery outburst and Crockett's calm resolve. The moral implications were undeniable. This was not just a debate, it was a test of values. It was about who could command respect without resorting to intimidation, who could lead without losing humanity, who could speak with conviction while listening to the voices of those historically ignored. Every viewer sensed it. This confrontation could shift perceptions, challenge assumptions, and inspire those who had long hoped for leaders willing to lead with both courage and conscience. And yet, the room seemed to hold its breath, knowing that the drama was only beginning. The clash between Kamala Harris's aggression and Jasmine Crockett's composed defiance was about to escalate, and the consequences would stretch far beyond the stage. What happened next left the entire room frozen, unsure whether they were witnessing a breakdown or the birth of an unforgettable triumph. Kamala Harris had always been a force to be reckoned with. From the earliest days of her political ascent, she carried herself with an air of inevitability, a quiet assurance that she belonged in the spotlight. Born into a lineage of ambitious minds, she learned early how to navigate corridors of power, how to shape perception, and how to project confidence when every eye was upon her. Her speeches were polished, rehearsed, and designed to inspire, but beneath the applause and media coverage, there were cracks that only time could reveal. Her rise through California's political landscape was meteoric. As district attorney and later attorney general, she carved a path that mixed accomplishments with controversies. Supporters celebrated her groundbreaking achievements, critics pointed to moments of harsh prosecution, policies that disproportionately affected marginalized communities, and public gaffes that hinted at a tendency toward self-preservation over genuine empathy. Even at her most triumphant, whispers followed her. Was her ambition tempered by conscience, or was it unrelenting, driven by the hunger to maintain an image of infallibility? Kamala's speeches often commanded attention, her cadence precise, her gestures deliberate. She knew how to draw headlines, how to create viral moments, and how to make the room hang on her every word. Yet those same moments sometimes revealed impatience with dissent, a fleeting irritation when challenged, a glimpse of the human flaw behind the polished veneer. There were interviews where her tone shifted, where a sharp retort slipped before she could recalibrate, and the world glimpsed that her composure, while formidable, was not unbreakable. Throughout her Senate career, Harris became a master of optics, navigating political minefields with strategic precision. She positioned herself as a champion of progress while occasionally alienating allies through rigid insistence on control. Her ambition was visible in every move, every committee appointment, every question posed with pointed intent, every calculated smile in the cameras. She was admired, feared, and scrutinized in equal measure, the embodiment of a politician whose strengths and weaknesses were inseparable. The public controversies, small and large, painted a fuller picture. From moments of dismissive laughter at opponents to pointed interruptions in debates, she had a tendency to let assertiveness slip into aggression. Each instance alone might have been overlooked, but together they formed a pattern. A narrative began to emerge: Kamala Harris, brilliant yet impassioned, commanding yet occasionally unrestrained, a figure whose drive sometimes overshadowed her empathy. And yet, she thrived in the spotlight. Every media cycle seemed to rejuvenate her image, turning missteps into talking points, and transforming criticism into opportunity. Her persona was larger than life, magnetic, intimidating, and that intensity was a tool she wielded with precision. But the same intensity could ignite confrontation, leaving her vulnerable when faced with a challenge that demanded more than showmanship. As the crowd now watched her on stage, screaming across the podium, few considered the history behind that moment. Few imagined the decisions, the ambitions, the public missteps that had led to this collision. Her aura of command, while imposing, carried subtle vulnerabilities that only those who watched closely could detect. And across from her, Jasmine Crockett's calm, deliberate presence was beginning to cast those vulnerabilities into stark relief. But no one could predict how her past decisions would collide with this moment on stage. Every calculated move, every public misstep, every flicker of impatience, the stage was set, and the consequences were about to unfold in ways that would shock even those who thought they knew Kamala Harris. Jasmine Crockett's journey to the national stage was defined not by spectacle, but by steadfast determination and a deep-rooted sense of purpose. Born to parents who instilled in her the values of community, empathy, and justice, she understood from a young age that leadership was about service, not self-aggrandizement. Every decision she made, every path she pursued, carried the weight of responsibility, to her family, her constituents, and to the ideals she believed could transform her community. Her early career in law was marked by tireless advocacy. She walked into courtrooms not to impress, but to fight for those who had no voice, the marginalized, the overlooked, and the silenced. Each case she took on reflected her commitment to fairness and integrity. Unlike some who sought headlines, Crockett measured her success by the tangible change she could bring, whether it was a small victory in a local ordinance or a precedent-setting win that would ripple through her city's justice system. Her courage was quiet but resolute, the kind that demanded attention not through volume but through impact. Entering politics was never about ambition for ambition's sake. Crockett's ascent was rooted in principle, a calculated balance between vision and pragmatism. She listened more than she spoke, absorbing the hopes and fears of her constituents, and translating them into actionable plans. Her calm, deliberate demeanor became a hallmark. Where others resorted to theatrics, she relied on clarity. Where others wielded power as a weapon, she wielded it as a tool to elevate, to protect, and to empower. Her campaign trail was rigorous, filled with long nights, difficult decisions, and moments of personal sacrifice. She often traveled to communities ignored by mainstream attention, sitting in living rooms and community halls, hearing stories of struggle, resilience, and hope. Every handshake, every conversation, was a thread weaving her into the fabric of the people she represented. This was not the making of a celebrity politician, it was the crafting of a leader who understood that dignity and patience could command more respect than 1,000 fiery speeches. Crockett's reputation for composure was earned, not assumed. She faced opposition with grace, criticism with reflection, and challenges with unwavering focus. Political rivals tried to provoke her, the media attempted to frame her in narrow narratives, yet she remained unshaken. Her power was quiet but undeniable, a calm force that drew attention precisely because it was rare in a world dominated by loud, performative gestures. In the face of anger, she maintained poise, in the face of intimidation, she held her ground. Her presence alone was a lesson in restraint, an invitation to reconsider what true leadership looks like. Her personal sacrifices were no secret to those who followed her closely. Long hours, postponed personal milestones, and constant scrutiny demanded resilience. She bore the weight of expectation not with bitterness, but with resolve. Every sleepless night, every calculated risk, every decision to prioritize the needs of others over comfort built the foundation for a leader who could withstand pressure without losing her moral compass. As the stage lights illuminated the debate hall, Crockett stood as the embodiment of preparation, patience, and principle. The contrast with her opponent could not have been clearer. Kamala Harris's outburst was raw and chaotic, yet Crockett's calm gaze was steady, almost prophetic. She had trained for this moment not through rehearsed theatrics, but through a lifetime of service, reflection, and intentional action. Her history had prepared her for the chaos, and her values gave her the strength to respond with clarity rather than anger. The audience sensed it, even if they could not articulate why. There was something magnetic about her presence, a reassurance that integrity still mattered in politics. Every subtle movement, every measured breath, reinforced that Crockett's power was rooted in principle, not performance. And as the tension thickened, the whispers among the crowd reflected a growing awareness: this confrontation would not unfold as expected. She knew exactly how to respond, but the crowd had no idea what was coming next. Every calculated pause, every deliberate look, was a prelude to a moment that would redefine the debate, challenge assumptions, and leave an indelible impression on everyone watching. The stage was set, and the hero was ready. Sweat beaded on foreheads. The audience leaned forward. Every word could tip the scales, every gesture a signal of power or vulnerability. The debate hall was electric, the kind of charged silence that made hearts race and breaths shallow. Cameras zoomed in, capturing the tension in sharp detail, a twitch of a lip, a flicker of an eye, a hand trembling slightly on the podium. This was more than a political clash, it was a collision of personalities, of philosophies, of raw human emotion under the harsh glare of public scrutiny. Kamala Harris's voice rang out again, sharper, louder, more insistent. Her words carried the weight of authority, but also the edge of aggression. She leaned forward, gesturing emphatically, each phrase aimed like a javelin at her opponent. Her rhetoric escalated, accusations flying, designed to unsettle, to dominate, to provoke a misstep. The crowd reacted instinctively, murmurs, raised eyebrows, some gasps, as if waiting for Crockett to falter, to crack under the pressure. Every syllable from Harris was a calculated strike, a test of endurance, a demonstration that power could be loud and intimidating. But across the stage, Jasmine Crockett remained the picture of composure. She did not raise her voice. She did not flinch. Her posture was unwavering, her gaze steady. Where Harris's fury sought to destabilize, Crockett's calm logic created a magnetic counterbalance, drawing attention not to herself but to the clarity of her ideas. She answered each escalation with precision, turning aggressive rhetoric into opportunities to articulate her principles. Her words flowed carefully, deliberate, each sentence measured to dismantle arrogance without descending into anger. The contrast was stark. Harris's impatience shimmered in her eyes, her gestures became sharper, her words harsher, revealing a fissure in her previously controlled demeanor. Crockett's serenity, on the other hand, amplified her strength. Every pause she allowed, every careful syllable, forced the audience to lean in, to feel the weight of her reasoning. The clash was no longer just verbal, it was symbolic, chaos versus calm, spectacle versus substance, aggression versus dignity. The tension in the room thickened with each passing moment. Whispered exchanges among audience members grew louder, their anticipation palpable. Social media feeds, live-tweeted from the back of the room, began to buzz. Clips of Harris's outburst circulated instantly, juxtaposed with Crockett's measured responses. Analysts would later note the subtle power of restraint, but in that moment, the entire hall was suspended, hanging on the delicate balance of confrontation and response. And then came the moment of near silence. Harris, sensing the advantage slipping, pushed further, her words sharp as knives, her tone dripping with challenge. The audience leaned in, holding their collective breath, waiting to see if Crockett would break, if the carefully maintained calm would shatter under the weight of unrelenting pressure. The air seemed to thicken. Every eye in the room was fixed on her. Every heartbeat synchronized with the tension on stage. Crockett remained poised, her lips parting slightly, her mind calculating, ready to respond, but the silence before her words was deafening. The crowd, the cameras, the world, they all waited, suspended in the anticipation of a response that could redefine the narrative entirely. The room hung on a knife's edge. Kamala Harris, still brimming with the energy of her own outburst, waited for a reaction she expected, perhaps a stumble, a flinch, a faltering word. She leaned slightly forward, her eyes scanning the crowd for validation, for the subtle nods that affirmed her dominance. But across the stage, Jasmine Crockett remained impossibly calm, her presence a stark contrast to the storm that had just erupted. Every movement, every breath, conveyed that she was not merely responding, she was preparing to redefine the narrative entirely. Crockett's eyes swept the hall, landing briefly on journalists, constituents, and the cameras capturing her every nuance. Then, slowly, she opened her mouth. Her voice was measured, smooth, yet carried the weight of unshakable principle. Leadership, she began, pausing just long enough for the words to settle into the stunned silence, is not proven through intimidation. It is proven through integrity, through listening, and through standing for the people even when no one is watching. The effect was immediate. Whispers rippled through the crowd, a collective inhale of awe and disbelief. Every pause Crockett took emphasized her control, transforming the stage into a theater of moral clarity. She continued, each sentence carefully structured to dismantle aggression without descending into retaliation. We are here to solve problems, not to perform theatrics. The strength of a leader is measured by their ability to rise above anger, not by how loudly they can yell across a podium. Kamala's expression shifted. The confident assertiveness she had wielded like a weapon faltered for a fraction of a second. The audience noticed. Some leaned forward instinctively, sensing the unexpected turn. Crockett's composure was not just a rebuttal, it was a demonstration of power that demanded respect. Every word landed like a carefully aimed arrow, piercing through the pretense, revealing the difference between performance and principle. The hall was silent except for her voice, yet it resonated louder than any scream could. We cannot lead by fear, nor can we convince through aggression. We lead by listening, by understanding, and by acting with courage even when the odds are stacked against us. The people deserve more than shouting, they deserve solutions, they deserve honesty, they deserve dignity. Each syllable hung in the air, magnified by the weight of truth and the undeniable moral clarity she projected. Cameras captured it all, broadcasting Crockett's calm authority across screens and feeds. The audience reacted subtly at first, tightened jaws, widened eyes, exchanged glances, but as the realization sank in, murmurs became louder. Phones were lifted, snapping photos and recording videos. Social media feeds began to light up instantly. Clips of Crockett's calm, precise rebuttal circulated within seconds, paired with hashtags praising her composure, intelligence, and courage. Analysts typed rapidly, commentators whispered on live streams, influencers shared clips with captions like, "This is what leadership looks like," and, finally, "Someone who leads with dignity." Harris's attempts to interrupt fell flat. Every jab, every pointed gesture, was countered by Crockett's steady reasoning. It was as if the storm had met an unmovable force. The applause, initially tentative, grew steadily as Crockett continued, punctuating each phrase with subtle pauses that allowed the audience to absorb the meaning, to internalize the contrast between her calm logic and Harris's aggressive theatrics. True leadership, Crockett said, her eyes locking with members of the crowd, is the courage to stand for what is right, even when it is unpopular. It is the patience to listen before reacting, and the strength to act with integrity when challenged. We are not defined by anger or fear, we are defined by our ability to rise above it. The room erupted, a wave of applause, cheers, and stunned reactions washing over the stage. Even those who had entered skeptical found themselves captivated, compelled, inspired. Harris's composure had cracked subtly, a twitch in her expression, a glance that sought reassurance. It was clear now that the narrative had shifted. Crockett's words had not merely responded to aggression, they had transformed the moment into a testament to the triumph of dignity over arrogance, of justice prevailing in real time. The media cameras panned across faces, capturing the incredulity of reporters, the astonishment of constituents, and the collective realization that this debate had become a historic clash of character. From the back of the room, aides, journalists, and political operatives exchanged looks of awe. Tweets, live streams, and instant reactions began cascading across platforms. Memes would follow, clips would trend globally, and pundits would dissect every syllable, praising the strategy, the calm, the undeniable moral authority Crockett had demonstrated. This was not a victory in policy alone, it was a victory in principle, and the audience understood it viscerally. The final words from Crockett hung in the air like a clarion call: leadership is measured not by the volume of your voice, but by the impact of your actions and the integrity of your choices. For a moment, time seemed to pause. The crowd absorbed it, the cameras captured it, and even Harris, formidable and ambitious, could not mask the subtle unraveling of her confident veneer. The moment Crockett's words hung in the air, the debate hall seemed to erupt in a delayed crescendo. Screens lit up. Phones recorded. Millions watched in awe as the story spread like wildfire across social media. Clips of her calm, unwavering rebuttal were shared, reshared, and dissected within seconds. Hashtags began trending, hashtag calm leadership, hashtag Crockett wins, hashtag dignity over anger. Analysts, influencers, and ordinary viewers alike marveled at the stark contrast between Crockett's measured authority and Harris's aggressive outburst. Television channels replayed the highlight over and over. Morning shows dissected her phrasing, late-night hosts mimicked the gestures, and political commentators debated the implications. Every replay reinforced the same narrative: here was a leader who commanded respect through principle, while the other relied on intimidation and spectacle. Memes began to surface, not mocking Crockett, but celebrating her composure, often juxtaposing calm images of her with chaotic frames of Harris mid-scream. The visual storytelling reinforced the hero versus villain dichotomy in ways that words alone could not. On Twitter, threads grew exponentially. People from across the country, and even the globe, weighed in. Immigrant communities highlighted Crockett's ability to remain unshaken under pressure, framing her as a role model who embodied resilience, patience, and moral clarity. Progressive audiences amplified her actions, drawing parallels to historic moments where courage had transformed political discourse. Meanwhile, critics of Harris began to question her temperament, leadership style, and ability to handle confrontation without resorting to aggression. The debate had become more than a single moment; it had evolved into a nationwide conversation about values, character, and leadership. Celebrities joined the chorus. Influencers posted videos praising Crockett's calm authority. Civil rights advocates tweeted their admiration for her ability to speak truth to power. Politicians weighed in cautiously at first, noting the need for civility, but as clips spread, even allies of Harris were forced to acknowledge Crockett's undeniable composure. Each reaction, each share, each retweet amplified the story's reach, making the confrontation a defining moment of the political season. Pundits dissected the encounter frame by frame. Every pause, every deliberate word, every slight tilt of her head was analyzed as an example of strategic mastery and moral courage. They debated the implications for future debates, elections, and public perception. The narrative was clear: Crockett had seized the moment, turning what could have been intimidation into an opportunity to showcase true leadership. Harris's outburst, conversely, had shifted from a show of dominance to a display of fragility under scrutiny. In the office corridors of power, conversations buzzed. Legislative aides, campaign strategists, and party officials exchanged messages, screenshots, and links. Some marveled at Crockett's rise, speculating on the potential shift in public support. Others worried about the long-term consequences for Harris's public image. The stage confrontation, intended as a routine debate moment, had exploded into a multi-layered narrative affecting public perception, media framing, and political strategy alike. Even beyond politics, the debate sparked discussions about leadership and civility. Civic organizations highlighted Crockett's example as one that young people could emulate. Social media users celebrated her ability to confront aggression without aggression, emphasizing the power of calm logic and ethical grounding in moments of high pressure. The story resonated because it was relatable. It was about facing challenges without losing one's principles, about standing firm when provoked, about the triumph of dignity over intimidation. As night fell, the ripple continued. Viral clips multiplied, hashtags climbed higher, and public forums bristled with analysis, praise, and debate. The clash of personalities had become a defining story, one that illuminated the contrast between a hero who led with patience and a villain whose temper betrayed ambition. Every screen, every feed, every conversation reinforced that Crockett's calm had shifted the perception of leadership in real time. And yet, as the world buzzed with reactions, the broader political consequences loomed in the background. How would this moment shape alliances, debates, and campaigns yet to come? What unseen effects would ripple through the halls of power, the corridors of policy, and the conversations in living rooms across the nation. The story was far from over, and the tension of what would happen next kept the world watching, waiting for the next chapter. In the aftermath of the debate, as the echoes of applause and gasps faded, a deeper truth lingered in the minds of those who witnessed it. Beyond the viral clips, the trending hashtags, and the pundit analysis, there was a lesson that transcended politics. Leadership is measured not by volume, aggression, or spectacle, but by composure, integrity, and courage under pressure. Jasmine Crockett's calm, principled response reminded the nation that true power is quiet, deliberate, and rooted in unwavering values. The cameras captured the slow, deliberate gestures of a leader at ease with herself. Every pause, every measured word, carried a weight that transcended the immediate debate. The audience, both in the hall and across countless screens, felt it instinctively. There was a sense of relief, admiration, and inspiration, a reminder that dignity can prevail in even the most charged confrontations. In those moments, the ordinary and extraordinary intertwined. A public figure acting with integrity became a symbol for what every citizen could aspire to in their own lives. Leadership, as Crockett demonstrated, is not about dominating a room or silencing opposition. It is about listening, reflecting, and responding with thoughtfulness. It is about recognizing that every action, every word, has consequences, not only for oneself but for the broader community. The debate had become a mirror, reflecting the values of patience, morality, and ethical courage. Those who watched recognized that integrity is not performative, it is earned through consistent practice, often in moments where no one is applauding, yet the stakes could not be higher. In the quiet aftermath, social media discussions shifted from spectacle to substance. Conversations arose about civility in leadership, the importance of empathy in governance, and the impact of measured action versus reactive outbursts. Crockett's example encouraged individuals to consider their own responses to confrontation, to pause, to evaluate, and to act with dignity rather than impulse. It was a moment that invited reflection, not just applause. The moral resonance extended beyond politics. Parents explained it to children as a lesson in patience. Educators highlighted it as a model for ethical decision-making. Communities celebrated the demonstration that courage is not always loud, that strength often appears in calm confidence rather than in showy dominance. Crockett's composure became a universal metaphor, that when challenged, one can rise not by overpowering others, but by standing firmly in one's principles. As the dust of the debate settled, one image remained indelible, a leader unshaken, speaking truth to power, embodying both intellect and empathy. The slow-motion imagery of her poised responses, juxtaposed against the flustered gestures of her opponent, lingered in the collective consciousness. It was a testament to the enduring power of patience and moral clarity, a cinematic reminder that character is revealed in moments of high pressure. For viewers, the lesson was clear. In a world often dominated by noise, chaos, and the allure of aggression, the quiet heroism of integrity stands out. True courage is calm under fire, steadfast in conviction, and guided by values larger than oneself. Crockett's triumph was not just a political victory, it was a celebration of universal human virtues, dignity, service, and the courage to act rightly, even when the odds seem insurmountable. In reflecting on this moment, the audience was left with an enduring inspiration. They saw that in every confrontation, every challenge, and every critical moment, it is possible to act with composure, to maintain integrity, and to rise above personal ego. The story of this debate, of this heroic stance, became a touchstone for what leadership, and indeed, human character, can achieve when grounded in principle. It was a reminder that in the theater of life and politics alike, virtue, patience, and moral courage are the forces that leave the deepest mark. As the lights dimmed and the debate stage emptied, one image lingered in the minds of viewers: Jasmine Crockett, calm, composed, and unwavering, facing down aggression with dignity and principle. Her words, now echoing across social media and living rooms alike, reminded everyone that leadership is earned through integrity, not intimidation. Kamala Harris's scream may have captured attention in the moment, but Crockett's poised reply captured the hearts and respect of millions. "This is what leadership looks like," Crockett had said, and in that statement, the audience found more than a political lesson. They found inspiration, a call to embody courage, empathy, and moral clarity in their own lives. Her victory was not just on the debate stage, it was a triumph for every person who has ever faced intimidation and chosen to respond with calm, reasoned strength. Now, it's your turn. Reflect on the lessons of this confrontation. Share your thoughts, your reactions, and your own experiences of standing firm under pressure. Join the conversation, inspire others, and amplify the message that dignity and courage matter in every corner of society. If this story moved you, make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share this video with your friends and community. Leave a comment below telling us what leadership means to you, and how you rise above challenges in your own life. Every action, every voice, every share contributes to a culture where integrity and respect are celebrated over aggression. The debate may have ended, but the impact is ongoing. Carry the lesson forward, stand tall, and remember, true strength is calm, principled, and unwavering.